Hello, hello, hello. Can you guys believe it's already March? I feel a little bit crazy thinking that it's March already. And what happened in February? What happened in January? It just flew by. My gosh. So I am here today to talk about travel. As many of you already know, my name is Tee McNeill, and I am the owner and founder of McNeill Luxury Travel. It has been crazy out there. Everyone has been cooped up for the last 2 years, and people are ready to go. They're ready to get out in the world, see what's out there. They've saved up all this money from the last 2 years, and now they're ready to travel. And so it's my job to help people travel well, to get out there and see the world. But I want you guys to do it safely and carefully. And I want you to think about the places that you are going. And I want you to think about what you want to do when you get there. So today, what I thought I would do is talk about some of my top travel destinations for 2022. Because honestly, I think that big cities are out. So you know how we used to go to Europe and go to all these big cities with all these people milling about? I think those days are gone, and now we need to think about travel in a different way. We need to think about travel out in nature. We need to think about travel in a more customized way. And we need to think about travel in a more thoughtful way. So I want to talk about 3 destinations that are on my mind for 2022. So, I am coming to you guys from Playa del Carmen, Mexico. So, pardon my my trees and my patio, but I was thinking about what's the best place to do this Facebook Live, and I think having a little green space is good. So first, let's talk about the first destination. The first one is Portugal. Portugal, as all of you know, is very popular these days. It seems like everybody and their mother is moving to Portugal, literally packing up all their stuff and relocating to Portugal. Now, the big city, the major capital in Portugal is Lisbon. Lisbon is, it's a food lover's paradise. So much good food in Lisbon. So many wonderful things to do. There's incredible street art and architecture. There is an incredible seaside community because you're right on the water. There's lots of parks, public spaces in Lisbon. Lots of things to do. Many immigrant communities are in Lisbon, and they have brought with them fantastic cuisine. Now, do I highly recommend Lisbon? Yes, I do, but not during a pandemic. Instead, what I want you to do is fly into Lisbon and head out to see some of the other places in Portugal that are equally magical. So what are some of those places? Well, the first place that I highly recommend is Porto. Porto is a river town, and Porto kind of reminds me a little bit like, it's like the Berkeley, like, you know how there's in the Bay Area, there's Berkeley and then there's San Francisco. I think of Lisbon as like San Francisco, and I think of Porto as like Berkeley or Oakland, because Porto is smaller. It has a smaller footprint. It's right on the river. It's got a gorgeous bridge separating the 2 parts of town, the old town and kind of like the new town. It's very walkable. You don't need a car or a bike in Porto. You can take public transportation if you like. They do have streetcars, or you can just walk around, and there's plenty of things to do. Lots of gelato shops, lots of boutiques. There's an old part of Porto that is really nice to walk around with the cobblestone streets and lots of gorgeous Portuguese tile. But what's really unique about Porto is the fact that it's smaller, it's a walkable town, and it's not as congested as Lisbon. So I highly recommend Porto if you're interested in Portugal. The other place that I recommend is the Dorro Valley. You might know the Dorro Valley from seeing all of those cruise ships that go through on wine tasting trips. So if you've ever seen pictures of the Dorro Valleys, it's rolling green hills with this gorgeous Dorro River snaking through. And people go on these trips because they're really into the wine and, of course, the port. The Dorro Valley is one of the largest port makers in the world. And so people come from all over to taste the port. So I highly recommend the Dorro Valley because, first thing, you're out in nature. It's so beautiful out there, just rolling hills. I think I've posted some pictures of my trip to Dorro Valley several years ago. And all you can see everywhere you look is vineyards, green rolling hills, and that gorgeous river in the background. So I really enjoy recommending Dorro because you can go and you can taste wine or you can taste port, and there's some fantastic local small restaurants. But the most important thing is you're out in nature, and that's really the key during traveling during the pandemic. And the third place that I recommend for Portugal is someplace you might not think about. It's actually the southern part of Portugal, also known as Algarve. Algarve is the seaside part. It's the beach. It's the ocean. It's fantastic. It's a completely different look and feel to say Lisbon or Porto or even the river, Douro River. We're literally talking about this place in, oh, Hui! Hey, Hui, I'm talking about Portugal. Hui is my friend from San Francisco many years ago. He's a fellow tour director, and he is Portuguese. And in fact, you might still be in Portugal. So I am talking about your beautiful country and why people should come and visit. So I'm talking about Algarve down in the southern part of Portugal, where you can have a beautiful ocean and beach experience. One of the things I loved doing when I was in Algarve, particularly I was in Lagos. Lagos is a gorgeous beachside resort community. And what I liked about that is that I got to explore all the caves along the coast. The area down in that region, as far as I'm concerned, looks like Smuggler's Cove. It's a place where, if you look up on the hillside, you will see gorgeous, I don't know if it's limestone, but it's these rocks and there's all these caves in there. And it's a popular place for the locals to go diving. So if you've ever seen those videos on YouTube of people jumping off of rocks into the ocean, they're doing it in this region of Portugal, and it's absolutely gorgeous. There's all these hidden caves that are accessible by boat. And in fact, I have a video of me on the water in a boat inside a cave. Oh, amazing, amazing. So this is the kind of experience that I want for you guys. I want you to get out in nature. I want you to explore these countries, but in a very thoughtful way. And I want you to not be afraid to try something different. So as much as I love Lisbon, I love it. I would not recommend it for a vacation. Instead, I want you to get out of the big city, and I want you to go to Porto, and I want you to go to Dorro Valley, and I want you to go down to the southern part of Portugal, Algarve and Lagos and Porto Marine. That is what I want for you. So that's Europe. Now I have two other regions of the world that I want to talk about. One is in North America, and the other one is in Central America. The one in North America is one that not many people know about, Quebec City. Quebec City is probably the most Frenchified city in Canada. It is not in Quebec, Montreal, Quebec. It's further north. It's a very unique place because it still feels like France, old France. So instead of going to Montreal, Quebec, instead go out to Quebec City. What can you expect to do in Quebec City? Why even bother? Well, like I said, it's an old French port town. And so there are all these places that are hidden within the town that are completely walkable. One of my favorite is called Vieux Quebec. I think I've said that right. It means old Quebec. It's the oldest part of town. And so you can walk around, you can go to shops and cafes. It's all cobblestone streets, so it's really lovely. You can spend an entire day there. The other one that I recommend is the Petition neighborhood. This is a neighborhood that is below the major part of town because Quebec City is actually built on a hill. And so there's the top part of town and then there's the low part of town. And in the low part of town, that's Petit Champlain. And that is filled with shops, all kinds of boutiques. Again, this is another place that you can spend an entire day just walking up and down, seeing all of the wonderful shops, restaurants with outdoor dining, beautiful green spaces here, there. It's a really unique place to visit. So I highly recommend Quebec City. And the last little neighborhood that I recommend is the Place Royale. That was my really bad French pronunciation. But basically Palace Royal. And that's the old original French governing area. And what you'll find in that neighborhood is architecture. Lots and lots of architecture and museums because it is meant to be imposing. That's where you'll see all the fancy buildings, the sort of neoclassical buildings. That's Palace Royale. So there's something for everybody in Quebec City. So instead of going to Quebec and Montreal and spending all of your time in a major city, I highly recommend going a little bit further up north to Quebec City, right on the St. Lawrence River, where you can really get a feel for old France. Okay, so those are two destinations I've talked about: Portugal in Europe, Quebec City in North America. And now I want to turn our attention to the central part of America, Central America. Specifically, I want to talk about Guatemala. Guatemala. What can I say about Guatemala that hasn't already been said by many other people? But I want to tell you about my experience in Guatemala. I went to Guatemala many, many years ago when I was much younger and maybe not so wise. And I went with my girlfriends, and we decided to stay for 3 weeks, each spending a week in a different place. One person chose one destination, another person chose another one, and so on. And we got to do whatever that person wanted to do. Because I wasn't very adventurous at the time, I chose Antigua, which is one of the oldest cities in Guatemala. And what was amazing about Antigua is I was there over 20 years ago, and I still remember every single thing about it. I remember it like it was yesterday. So I want to talk about some of those off the beaten path parts of Guatemala. So the first place that I recommend, you have to fly into Guatemala City. You can't avoid it because that's where the airport is. But I don't recommend that you spend any time there because it's really a place to come in and out of the country. Instead, I want you to get out and see other parts of the country. And the first place I want you to go is Antigua, because Antigua literally sits in the middle of a lush, gorgeous green space literally in the background of a volcano. It's not live, but it's really beautiful. Antigua is an old colonial town. It's filled with cobblestone streets. It's known as a culinary capital, so there's really good food. There's an incredible spa scene, wellness scene. If you want to get your spa on and have a massage and a facial, every day you could go to a different place and have a wonderful time. Lots of wonderful, gorgeous boutique hotels with unique personalities. And of course, there is the Guatemalan culture. You will get that in Antigua. So I highly recommend a visit to Antigua, one of the oldest cities in Guatemala. Now, where to go next? what can you do? What to do? The next place that I recommend is Lake Atitlan. Lake Atitlan is a huge lake that was built based on the old volcanoes that are there. I think there's 3 volcanoes. There's a lot of volcanoes in Guatemala, to be honest. And these particular volcanoes, I think one of them is active, and the other 2 are not. And so it has created this huge crater that was filled with water, and now we call it Lake Atitlan. And lake culture is really different from the culture in Antigua. So in order to get to Lake Atitlan, you have to take a shuttle or a bus, and it drops you off in this super touristy town called, Elenia knows this place. Hi, Elenia. Lake Atitlan is bordered by this super touristy town called Pana Hachel. And Pana was basically, I would say Pana was there before, many Americans got there, but the Americans came during the Vietnam War, and they really have developed it so that it doesn't feel like Guatemala very much. At least I didn't think it felt like Guatemala. And I was in search of the Guatemalan culture, and so I was like, where can I find it? And my friends were like, get on the lancha and go out and explore the communities surrounding the lake. And that's what I recommend. If you want to see Guatemalan culture up close and personal, get on one of the boats and go out to one of those lake towns, these lake villages. I stayed at Casa del Mundo back in the day, and it was really a lot of fun. It was an American guy who married a Guatemalan woman, and he decided to build this eco resort into the mountain. And so it's like all these rooms on the mountainside overlooking this gorgeous lake. And I remember I woke up on the first real day on the lake, and I opened the window and I was looking at the three volcanoes, and I couldn't believe it. I said, man, I'm paying $10 a day for this room, and if this was a chain hotel, I'd be paying like $1,000 to have that view. And so Lake Atitlan, there's wonderful things that you can explore around there. You can go hiking, which is lovely. You could swim in the lake because it's really refreshing. It's very deep, but very refreshing. You can explore the villages all around the lake. And what I found is that there's a lot of material culture, Guatemalan textiles, Guatemalan cooking classes, Guatemalan dance classes. You can do all of this around the lake, and it's really fun because it doesn't feel very touristy. It feels like you're really connecting with locals and learning about Guatemalan culture. And I think that's what you get out of, going off the beaten path. So Lake Atitlan, highly recommended. Now, the last place that I recommend is, it's a place that might be considered touristy, but right now during the pandemic, I don't think there's a lot of people visiting there, and that is Tikal. Tikal is one of those, I don't know if it's a wonder of the world, but it should be. Like how there's pyramids in Mexico? Well, Tikal has their own set of ruins, or Guatemala has its own set of ruins, and it's called Tikal. And Tikal was the site of their ancient government, basically, the site of all of their politics. Huge community, of course, very well preserved because they want to preserve their heritage. But if you go there, it's kind of a hassle to get there, which is why if you go, you have to commit. So you can take a bus, but most people will fly in, and then they will head over to Tikal. And Tikal is a park. It's a national archaeological park. And so you can overnight nearby, or I just recently heard that you can overnight in the park, but you have to get a permit in order to do so. If you want to overnight in the park, it's basically hammock living. So it's not even like you have a tent or anything, but you can bring a tent. But if you want to just sleep in a hammock in this ancient archaeological park, you can. How unique is that? That's really different. So that's one of the options that you can do if you want to visit Tikal, or you can stay in a hotel in town. But what you do at Tikal is you walk around and you learn about the ancient society that gave birth to Guatemalan culture. And it's fascinating because you learn things about like what they ate, how they dressed, what their politics were like, how they survived, and of course, why they went extinct to a certain extent. So again, you're out in nature, right? You're not in this huge metropolis. You're out in fresh air, you're exploring ancient culture, and you're learning more about the culture you're there to interact with. And that's what I think makes traveling so amazing, is it's not just going to a place and looking at a monument and then leaving. I mean, we've done that our entire lives, right? Instead, this new kind of travel is more about connecting with the locals, connecting with the local culture, whether it's through food, through art, through a cooking class, through a hike. You really learn more about yourself when you slow down your pace of travel and you seek to kind of make that connection. I find that the people that I'm working with now to curate trips, clients want to have that connection because we've all been basically isolated for the last 2 years. And so we're looking for that connection. And in this way, traveling in a more thoughtful way makes us feel more connected to one another. And so that's what I love about travel, is it gives us that opportunity. So I would say of the 3 places that I've recommended today, whether it's visiting Portugal, whether it is Quebec City, or the beautiful country of Guatemala, do so thoughtfully, do so with joy in your heart, and do so with an open spirit. And I guarantee that you will have an amazing time. So thanks everybody for joining me today. Let me know if you have any questions about these destinations. You can drop them in the comments. I'm going to save this Facebook Live in case there are some comments. I'm happy to answer them. But if you want to know more about the destinations that I recommend, I highly recommend that you download my 2022 destination guide, and I will be sure to drop the link inside this live. So I hope everyone's having a wonderful day, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.